One of the things that this crisis has taught us, sir, is that we are dangerously over-dependent on a global supply chain. For our medicines, like penicillin, our medical supplies, like masks, and our medical equipment, like ventilators. We have right now, as we speak, over 50 countries have already imposed some forms of export restrictions in their country against the rest of the world. And what we're learning from that is that no matter how many treaties you have, no matter how many alliances, no matter how many phone calls, when push comes to shove, you run the risk as a nation of not having what you need. And if there's any vindication of the president's buy American, secure borders, and a strong manufacturing base philosophy, strategy, and belief, it is this crisis, because it underscores everything that we see there.
Navarro's right. He's been right. He was mocked. He was ridiculed by a lot of people, very fancy economists who think that they're so much smarter than him, just as Trump was ridiculed for recognizing the threat that China poses. Many people who think of themselves as experts, who think that what they bring to the table is a breadth of knowledge and judgment on these issues, the particularly sophisticated and complex international trade and policy issues, they have been made to look like complete fools. I mean, sure, it's great if you're somebody who has been offshoring, and if you're a company that's been offshoring to China so that you are making a whole lot more money for yourself. And yes, people have pointed out that, you know, maybe being able to buy a $150 flat screen TV at Walmart because it's made in China isn't worth the price we are paying right now in national preparedness for what's going on. Yeah, you don't say. Now we all understand. Think about what is running short right now. Necessary medical equipment, protective gear, ventilators, antibiotics. A huge percentage of critical and staple, I mean, the antibiotics you need for a whole lot of things, made in China. No one thought this was a problem who is involved in international trade policy in all these DC think tanks and everything else. Our media institutions, no one thought this was a problem until now. The lack of foresight with all of this has been stunning. And it's more than just lack of foresight. There are people who all along have refused to make what are the decisions that are the best interests of America and the American people, because there's a lot of money sloshing around from, let's just call it what is, the globalists. That's the truth. There are a lot of people who are benefiting from the offshoring and from the outsourcing of all these different jobs and manufacturing and all the things that have been going on. And not only that, I mean, I remember I took a class in, I think it was a required, usually I got to pick my classes, but it was a required freshman class. It was called something like Bridge to the 21st Century. And it was like if a Tom Friedman editorial was made into a freshman seminar that you had to take, that's what this was. It was all just, we are all one people and we are all one trade union and we are all just holding hands and going to get better as a world. And I don't mean America, I mean the world, all the countries of the world, you know. It was a big kumbaya moment, right? We're all supposed to just think that everything's great and fine and you know, no borders, one world government. This has been a fashionable ideology in the academy and in the media, in elite circles, you know, the Davos set for a long time. Of course, if you're super wealthy and you think that you can immunize yourself in a sense from the ill effects of this, which they do when it comes to illegal immigration, for example. Illegal immigration benefits the wealthy almost exclusively. They don't care. And whether you raise the tax rate, you know, what it does to local public schools and English as a second language and all these different challenges. I mean, if you're a member of the Soros family or you're Bloomberg or name a billionaire, none of that stuff matters to you. In fact, you might want to have really cheap labor at your businesses, really cheap labor doing household chores for you, whatever it may be. So they weren't paying the consequences of it. And it's unsurprising in a sense that here we are now, and as many are pointing out, and I saw Ann Coulter editorial on this, and there have been a lot of people that are saying this. This is a paying for globalism moment right now. But the rich aren't paying for it. Their assets have been so inflated by the stock market. They're doing great. They're fine. This isn't going to hurt them. The people that this circumstance are going to hurt are, first, those who get the disease and tragically those who die. But then second, those who will really suffer from the damage to the economy that's being done. It's long-term. This is long-term structural damage. I know we're supposed to think they're just going to send everybody checks and we're all just in like this giant national Netflix binge. But that's not the way this is going to be. That would be too simple. And if that were possible, you'd have to think, well, why don't we all just have a national holiday for a month every year where the government just sends everything? Think about how much better, what a quality of life that would be, you know? No one goes out. Everyone gets to stay home and hang out for a month. Well, when I say goes out, goes to work. This isn't a social distancing thing. This is just why not have the government pay for everybody to have a month-long taxpayer-funded vacation? Oh, that's right, because the money comes from the taxpayers, which is us. Whew. Navarro has been correct on this trade issue for a long time. A lot of people, voices that we sort of knew that they were right, but they were marginalized for a long time. People that, the Buchanan on trade, Pat Buchanan on trade, and people like Ron Paul on the debt and money printing. And these people are right on these issues. They've been proven right on this. No one said that it was going to be a crisis to have essential U.S. manufacturing offshored all the time, every year, although you could look at the loss in jobs and the gutting of the industrial Midwest and the manufacturing that was done there and what that's done to jobs. And I know people say, oh, well, we don't all want to have assembly line jobs. But, okay, yeah, but assembly lines are much safer and better and more high tech. And, we want people engaged in the process of making stuff here. And I'll tell you there are going to be massive cultural and political changes that come out of this. And I don't, whether we end this thing in a month or a year, which God forbid, but when I'm talking about end this thing, I mean the shutdown. I'm not the virus. I'm somebody who thinks eventually we're gonna hopefully get some better treatments for it, and then we're gonna have to we're gonna live with this thing for a while. It's gonna be out there. We're gonna, but I mean the shutdown can't be the only answer. I do think there's some people who think it is. But, and I also would note that I don't want to go back to the flatten the curve thing, but, okay, so if we flatten the curve, is it a national thing or is it a New York thing? Meaning, when New York's curve comes down, it's going to go up in other places. So the curve then we think the curve is flattened or is it not flattened? How do we gauge this? If one state is having a terrible crisis, other states have active infections, but a few states have already, the virus has burned through them largely. When is the curve really flattened? This is why they say it takes until August. I want to know really, I mean, the difference between flattening the curve and the plan they have is really just a function of stretching. It seems to me that they're stretching out the number of cases. There's still going to be a lot of cases. And I understand healthcare capacity. They keep saying that. We'll see. We'll see what the projections look like in April. And this is a brutal. Anyway, I don't. Look, I told you we shall not give into panic or despair on this show ever. We will never, never, never give into that. So that means that there'll be a limitation on how much of this stuff we can really talk about. How much of that aspect of it we'll talk about. But back to the trade issues and what I see changing here. Made in America is going to become a really powerful rallying cry after this. We will understand what that means. This has been a reminder. This has been a reminder of the nation state's role. This has been a reminder that a country is a community. A country is a polity in the ancient Greek sense, or a polis, right? That it has a political core and that it's a group of people that are a political family, political and cultural family, that there are differences between countries and their approach to things, and that when things get really ugly, you're either in the family or you're not. That's where we are right now. Trying to buy things from China. I was watching the Governor Cuomo press conference this morning, and he's saying that they're trying to negotiate to buy. He's talking to Jack Ma of Alibaba. Alibaba's the Amazon of China, and Jack Ma is the Bezos. I don't know, I blanked out his name for a second. He's the Bezos of China, trying to find ways to get these ventilators. Okay. That's where we are now. We're begging the Chinese to send us overpriced now. I mean, the market price has gone up. Send ventilators because we don't have the capacity to make them fast enough here. Some of you have been pointing out to me, I know you're right. You guys, a lot of you know a heck of a lot more about industry and manufacturing than I do. And you're saying that they couldn't turn around that as fast as we need them to, no matter what they did. It's just not possible. Well, isn't that an indictment of where we are then? You know, America, the mightiest commercial enterprise the world has ever known, and we can't churn out. We got 320 million people here. We can't churn out ventilators as fast as we need them with a true national crisis. Am I missing something? That seems to me to be, in and of itself, an indictment of what's going on here. That seems to me to be a clear problem with what's going on here. And I just think that we're going to have some big changes. Made in America is going to be really powerful. A lot of people who live through this are going to say, yeah, I'll pay a little more to know this is made here. That we outsourced all of our antibiotics. Antibiotics are not hard to make. Big Pharma has got a lot of making up to do. You know, Big Pharma they've been very guilty of this, you know, supply chain, offshore and all this stuff. And now here we are, we're turning to them and we're saying, can you guys save us from this virus? We don't know if we can figure this out in time. Sorry. Can you guys at least manufacture enough, you know, Z-Packs and chloroquine and whatever else? It's going to be tough. We got supply chain issues because they make a lot of this stuff overseas. What? You can't make this stuff? You know, this is putting strain on our system that you can't even imagine. I go on Amazon. I mean, Amazon is, for me, it's like worthless. I can't get anything delivered. Everything is, it's 6 weeks out. And I go, okay, well, this must be because we need essential items delivered now. I get that. And then I say, okay, Amazon, send me some paper towels so I don't have to go to a grocery store and possibly get infected myself, because infection in New York is more common than anywhere else. Oh, no, we can't do that. We're out of stock or don't have the delivery capacity. Well, I'm in New York. Who do they have the delivery capacity for? I mean, are they sending lots of toilet paper to people up in Montana? I mean, I love you, Montana, but I'm in a rougher spot here with COVID-19 than you are. I can't get this stuff delivered. So we're seeing that we thought we lived in this world of algorithms and instantaneous commercial gratification, and our supply chain is already stretched. Our ability to get what we need to get when we need it is insufficient. Cuomo is saying, he's saying on the ventilators that it's like, what is it? Sunday is D-Day. He's saying by Sunday we're not going. I'm sorry, no, not Cuomo. De Blasio is saying this. Play clip 3.
And I want to say the president's been very available, and I appreciate that. And we've gotten some of the help we need for sure. But the real help going forward, and I've said this explicitly to the president and his entire team, FEMA, the military, everyone. I've said that this coming Sunday is D-Day, because we know that as of Sunday, we start to run out of ventilators. We start to get really stressed in terms of our personnel. Think of it this way. For weeks and weeks and weeks, these heroic doctors, nurses, healthcare workers have been fighting this battle. A number of them are out sick now with the disease. A lot of them are just stretched to the limit. They need reinforcements. They need it now. So what I've said to every one of our national leaders is we need to get on a wartime footing.
I think we're on a wartime footing, aren't we? The president has invoked the Defense Production Act. We are all hands on deck here. We got all these different industries that are saying that they're making masks, they're making PPE. Where is the cavalry? I mean, I sit here and I'm asking this. I'm in the middle of what is the worst battle against COVID-19 right now in the world. And I just want to know where is all this stuff? And I'm not, by the way, I'm not despairing. I'm asking. Maybe there's more, and maybe the press is not, doing a good job of covering it. And I just wonder how we could even have the faintest notion that we wouldn't have the gear we need for our doctors and nurses to try to help people stay alive in America. I'm sorry, there's a big problem here. A big problem here. And it does make me question a lot. It does make me think more and more about the trillions and these wars overseas and all this stuff. For what? Well, I've been saying that for a long time. We should have ended the war in Afghanistan 15 years ago. But what are we doing? running around the world, all these international aid programs and all this stuff we got going on all the time, and we didn't think about this? The pandemic preparedness groups in the government did what exactly to prepare us for this pandemic? We don't have the gear. We don't know we don't know what to do. We don't know. I don't know. Look, this isn't despair. This is catharsis. This is sitting here saying, can we have a little bit of a truth session? I like having a truth session here. I'd prefer that. I'd prefer that to sitting around saying, pat me on the head, government. Tell me what to do. I'll be a good boy. Whatever you say, as long as you say it. Because all they've been doing is messing up as far as I can see. Our people are doing good work. The government? A lot of mistakes. A lot of mistakes.
Well, you know, it works, and we see it working all around the country, and I hate to even think of how much worse this would be without it. And why the president doesn't do the Defense Production Act, why he doesn't call for everyone to have it say, you'd have to ask him about that. But it is curious to hear some of the, I don't know if you call it rationale of some of the governors who have not implemented this. It not only is harmful to their own people, but it again contributes to the spread of the virus, which is harmful to everyone. We're up to around 90% of the American people at shelter-in-place or other stay-at-home initiatives. It should be 100%. Because this is a terrible assault on the lives and the livelihood of the American people, and we have to we're all in this together.
When Nancy Pelosi says we're all in this together, I wish I could just take her at her word, but remember this. She's the person who, while we were all suffering, thought we needed to work on corporate board diversity. Windmills, solar panels. While people are losing their jobs and people's friends, relatives, loved ones, siblings, spouses are dying of this, she wanted to play games and hold the whole thing up. Speed matters, as we know. The government is desperately trying to get money to people ASAP because the longer they don't have that money, the greater the stress is on the system, the greater the stress is on those people. They got bills to pay. They got things to do. They got families to support. But Pelosi wanted to play games. That's not going to change. Nancy Pelosi is going to view this whole thing as an opportunity for the Democratic Party. We've already seen her take action based on that. That was what that whole delay game was. And Nancy Pelosi isn't putting aside politics in the least. She's not putting aside her jihad against Trump. She's not going to stop. She wants to destroy him. She is viewing this as an opportunity for the Democratic Party to finally end the Trump presidency. So while she can talk about how much she cares about the people, her actions don't show it. Sometimes, even under extreme circumstances, people do the right thing knowing that it's going to hurt them, but they want to help other people. It does occur. That does certainly happen. And we have, I think, one instance of that here that we can all take a moment to go over together. You have the USS Theodore Roosevelt, an aircraft carrier, and Captain Brett Crozier, who was removed from his post. Now, he wasn't fired from the Navy. I was seeing some people thinking that's the same thing, but he was removed from his post, which is a big deal when you spend 20 years of your life, of your career, to get to the point where you are the captain of an aircraft carrier. That's a big deal. I'm not a Navy man myself, but I know enough to know that aircraft carrier is an expensive piece of equipment with a lot of people you're responsible for on board. And here's what happened. Captain Crozier was worried about the health of the men on board because they had an outbreak of COVID-19. And he did not think the Navy was being responsive enough. He sent a letter to the brass, and the letter leaked to the media, and he was removed from his post because he did not take necessary care to prevent that letter from making its way to the media. And here is how the sailors, the thousands of sailors and airmen and Marines on that ship sent off their captain as he was relieved of duty in Guam. Play clip 6. I think the men have had their say in this one, men and women. I think they've had their say. I think it's clear they appreciate that here was somebody who was willing to go to extreme lengths to make sure that they were safe. Now, I understand that there will be questions here about, well, if it leaked to the media, then perhaps there's an issue of the enemy knowing the readiness of that ship, and it's an aircraft carrier, and there are geopolitical and geostrategic concerns, and a lot of that stuff. But I also believe that this had already been reported in the press that there were concerns on this ship, and we're at a point now where, given what we see this is doing to even younger and healthier people, not that means the approach changes, but it means the risk tolerance on board a Navy ship would be different. If this isn't just a disease that can incapacitate and perhaps even kill people who would already be retired and out of the Navy, if it could kill people or incapacitate them who are still on board ship, then that changes the readiness capacity or the readiness of this ship. And so this seems to be a case where somebody just, I don't know if he leaked it intentionally or not. I find it hard to believe that a letter on board a ship like this would not get leaked, or would get leaked rather, without him being interested in having somebody let the media know what's going on here. But now there's more attention on this ship, and perhaps he might have saved lives of his men. And it's true of people in the military. It's true of people anywhere. Leaders who will take risks to their career to save their people. Nothing inspires loyalty like that. Nothing out there inspires that kind of loyalty. So that's a story. I think it's a somewhat inspiring story from the Navy side. There's another Navy story that's getting a lot of Navy talk today for all of you Navy folks, all of you. What's the word for Navy folks that I know there's one word that I'm trying to remember what the broad sailors. There we go. Good job, Buck. For all of the Navy sailors out there. I was like, not airmen. No, that's in the air. That's not the Navy's in the water. I know some things about some stuff. But there's this other story about the USNS Comfort, which, as I said, is close by here, and it is not taking in many patients. And this is in part because of what the mission of this Navy hospital ship was declared as. The mission is to deal with non-COVID patients who go into the hospital right now. So, if you have a heart attack, for example, the idea is that you can be transferred to this Navy ship. The problem is that the Navy ship has all these decontamination procedures in place, and you have to go to a hospital first before you get sent to the Navy ship. So as I go on air here, they really only had 20 was the last number I saw. 20 patients. They have 1,000 beds. They've got 20 patients. Now, of course, if you have to go in for a non-COVID issue, I would much rather be at the USNS Comfort than having to go. But I think you have to go to a hospital to get the referral. And if you don't have COVID-19, the last place on earth you want to be right now is a hospital ER intake. Last place you want to be. So as I understand it, you have to go to a hospital, and then the hospital makes a determination that you don't have COVID-19. Then they have to communicate with the Navy ship, transfer you to the Navy ship, and then the Navy has to do a test and ensure. I think they do your temperature. I'm not even sure what the full procedure is, but they'll put you through procedures to make sure you don't have COVID-19, and then you can be seen by the staff on that ship. I mean, you better hope you're not going in the ER with a gunshot wound. This is not good. This is not a fast process. So people are concerned about that, understandably. And now there's a discussion as to whether or not they will do what they did with the Javits Convention Center here. The Javits Convention Center is a state convention center. I'm like Perd Hapley right now from Parks and Rec. A convention center, a place where people convene that is central. But the Javits Center was turned from being what was going to be overflow hospital for non-COVID patients. So now it's a COVID hospital. And they've got, I think, over 1,000 beds in there, too. So now it's the entire Javits Convention Center has been set up to deal with COVID overflow. And one of the big problems that they're seeing is, as I've mentioned to you, people stay on the ventilators for a long time. So it's not just the patient intake. It's that patients go in and they stay in for weeks. So each bed every time someone gets put on a ventilator, they could be on for 14 to 21 days, which is much longer than usually you see usage of ventilators in ICU cases. Usually it's a few days and the person either makes it or doesn't, right? This is from a doctor friend of mine. That's what he said. In this instance, people are on those ventilators for weeks. So that's something else to keep in mind here as we go forward and see what the ability is to deal with all of these cases. Also want to talk more about the politics of this because, as you know, I mentioned that Pelosi is not done being Pelosi. Well, that's the understatement of the year. Pelosi is not done, so I want to tell you what she is up to with the Democrats while the nation is going through a crisis the likes of which this country has never seen. I want to take you through what Nancy Pelosi's reaction to all of this is and how she thinks she's helping.
Do you think it's fair for Mitch McConnell to suggest that impeachment slowed down the federal response?
No. Oh, that's so sad. They can't handle their jobs, I guess, because what are they saying? We ignored it? It was self-evident. Most people knew about it, and certainly those of responsibility. So I say of that, either you can't handle your job, but don't blame impeachment on that. Just blame it on the fact that you didn't want to face the reality. And that denial and that delay cost lives.
This is Nancy Pelosi. If she was standing next to you in the gym and you're on the treadmill and you're trying to do your run, and every 30 seconds she takes a broom and, whaps you across the shins as you're on the treadmill and it slows you down for a second. She goes, what? What, you can't handle your workout? You can't handle your run? They were trying to remove the president from his job. They were tangling him up in lawsuits and taking all public attention away from the possibility of this virus. And let's also remember, the media said the virus wasn't going to be a big deal. The experts said the virus wasn't going to be that big of a deal. That's just the truth. But now Nancy's saying, they couldn't handle their jobs. And she doesn't want to admit that the impeachment scam that they perpetrated against Trump and against the American people was just reckless beyond belief. What an idiocy to even go through with it. They really thought that, and the brave Mitt Romney. We all remember that. Oh, so brave, Mitt Romney, so brave. We all remember that vote that now I think people are increasingly able to recognize was just classic virtue signaling Romney showboating. Had nothing to do with anything. There are more important things for the government to be faced with. And I was having a little bit of a change in my thought process for they've put us through this nonsense for years about how Trump is the worst and Trump is basically, a traitor and all this. It kind of makes sense in a way that was what they did, though, because they can't psychologically, the Dems, the libs, they can't psychologically accept that Trump won and that the response to 8 years of Obama as president was to elect a guy who had never held elected office ever and smashed all of these liberal sacred cows and decided that it was no longer going to be the case, that the swamp was going to just do what it had done in the past and was going to come in with some very different ideas. Right? They couldn't process it. So in a sense, of course, they made stuff up. Of course, they came up with these coup efforts that were fabrications because that was all they could do, because they couldn't accept that the reality around them was what it was. And now, I really do think it's a worthwhile psychological exercise. Think about what the country feels like right now. We're in bad shape. You don't need me to tell you that. Things are bad. We're in a depression and we're losing people to a virus every day. Okay, this is bad. Think of the rhetoric that was being used by Democrats even a year or two ago. The middle class is getting crushed. Donald Trump is threatening our democracy. And, he's a clear and present danger, and he's going to lead us into war. And all these things that they were saying. The special counsel, he cheated to win the election. This was all, it was just all a fabrication. These people are nuts. They're nuts. And what they don't ever seem to take into account in this whole process is how much damage was done to the intelligent public, the intelligent public that has good judgments, willingness to listen to these people, given what we saw them do. And now we see Nancy Pelosi is pulling together a select committee. This is what I really wanted to get to. She hasn't learned any lessons. She hasn't changed her mind about anything. Here's what Pelosi's saying. Play 5.
The reason I announced this committee, this House Select Committee to address the coronavirus crisis, is so that we can, in the here and now, address as we go forward with transparency and accountability. Others are suggesting after action review, and that's for after action. And there are plenty of reasons why we need lessons learned, as Dr. Fauci referenced them the other day, lessons learned and perhaps new therapies when we have another round of this. God willing, we don't, but if we do. So that's about an after-action review, so we're prepared for the future. This is about the here and now.
Select committee, investigate, use the bureaucracy, use the process as a weapon again. While Trump, this is exactly what I said. Now Trump's on a treadmill for the life of this country, trying to keep us going. And Pelosi standing next to him with a broom, whapping him on the shins. Why can't you run faster? Why aren't you doing better? Just hitting him. I don't know. She's like, I don't know why Trump is having difficulty. We have accountability and a referendum built into the system. We have an election this fall. We don't need Congress while we are still in the storm to be sitting around saying, well, this is what the response was during the storm. We don't know. We simply don't know. Absurd. It's absurd. I mean, but Nancy Pelosi's not an ethical person. She's not an honest person. This shouldn't be a surprise to anyone. And the politics of this are not going to change. Oh, and just in case you're wondering, yeah, she's still worried about Obamacare enrollment, because that's really that's really something that's on the top of everyone's mind right now. Play 13.
Well, it's really so sad that the president would not extend the enrollment period. So many people are uninsured, some because in the Republican tax scam that they put forth, they stripped the individual mandate from that. So some people thought, well, I don't have to sign up for health insurance. They're going to be free riders. And some just couldn't afford to do it. So in any event, we should have an open enrollment to give people another chance to sign up in light of the coronavirus the crisis that we have. But it's no surprise, because this is the president who's in court right now to overturn the Affordable Care Act. Right now, he should withdraw that case, his support for that case, because that will take away any pre-existing condition benefit. It will take away all of the issues that relate to the cost, as well as the access and affordability and accessibility to health care.
I mean, they've already said that COVID, trust me, if you show up right now and you're getting COVID-19 treatment, there's not going to be, the government is not going to be sending anybody any bills for this stuff. It's just not going to happen. And Nancy Pelosi trying to say that he needs to pull the lawsuit about Obamacare because of this, she is just shameless. She's just shameless. It's do what I say or else. She will hold the nation hostage to her just nutty progressive agenda. And this is the way she operates all the time. Remember, the Democrats want you to believe that they are the ones that would do a better job. They want you to believe that they are much more capable than this administration is of handling this crisis. Why would anyone think that's the case? Why would anyone really believe that? What evidence do they give us that would make us think that that could be true? I mean, Nancy Pelosi, I wouldn't trust her to run a hot dog stand. I don't think Nancy Pelosi is somebody of good judgment. I think she is cunning and conniving and will do whatever, and ruthless, and will do whatever. And that served her very well in a Democratic Party that is just a machine, a coalition of interests for the acquisition of power and the utilization of that power through state mechanism based on an ideology of collectivism. That's what Pelosi stands for. And I know that sounds a little bit technical maybe, but that is who she is. There's no ethics, there's no concern for the little guy and all that. That's all a sham, a scam, and you know it. That's where we are, folks.